The Story of King Arthur and His Knights by Howard Pyle. Part 1. The Story of Merlin. Here followeth a particular account of the enchantment of Merlin by a certain damsel, hight Vivien, and of all the circumstances thereunto appertaining. Likewise it is to be narrated how King Arthur was betrayed by his own sister, and how he would certainly have been slain only for the help of the same enchantress Vivien, who was the cause of Merlin's undoing. And also shall be told how the sheath of Excalibur was lost at that time. Chapter 1st. How Queen Morgana le Fay meditated evil against King Arthur, and how she sent a damsel to beguile the enchanter Merlin. Now, Morgana le Fay was a very cunning enchantress, and was so much mistress of magic that she could, by the means of potent spells, work her will upon all things, whether quick or dead. For Merlin himself had been her master in the past, and had taught her his arts whilst she was still a young damsel in the court of Uther Pendragon. So it was that, next to Merlin, she was, at that time, the most potent enchanter in all the world. Nevertheless, she lacked Merlin's foreknowledge of things to happen, and his gift of prophecy thereupon. For these things he could not impart unto anyone, wherefore she had not learned them of him. Now, after Queen Morgana le Fay had come to the island of Avalon, as aforetold, she brooded a great deal over that affront which she deemed King Arthur had placed upon her house. And the more she brooded upon it, the more big did it become in her mind. Wherefore, at last, it seemed to her that she could have no pleasure in life unless she could punish King Arthur for that which he had done. Yea, she would have been glad to see him dead at her feet because of the anger that she felt against him. But Queen Morgana was very well aware that she could never do to the king, her brother, an injury so long as Merlin was there to safeguard him. For Merlin would certainly foresee any danger that might threaten the king, and would counteract it. Wherefore she was aware that if she would destroy the king, she must first destroy Merlin. Now there was at the court of Queen Morgana le Fay a certain damsel of such marvellous and bewitching beauty that her like was hardly to be seen in all of the world. This damsel was 15 years old and of royal blood, being the daughter of the king of Northumberland, and her name was Vivien. This damsel Vivien was both wise and cunning beyond all measure for one so young. Moreover, she was without any heart, being cold and cruel to all those who were contrary-minded to her wishes. So, because she was so cunning and wise, Queen Morgana liked her, and taught her many things of magic and sorcery which she knew. But, notwithstanding all that Queen Morgana did for her, this maiden did not feel any love for her mistress, being altogether devoid of heart. One day, this damsel and Queen Morgana le Fay sat together in the garden of that magic island of Avalon, and the garden was upon a very high terrace that overlooked the sea. And the day was very fair, and the sea so wonderfully blue that it appeared to have been though the blue sky had melted into water, and the water into the sky. As Vivien and the queen sat in this beautiful place, the queen said to the damsel, "Vivien, what wouldst thou rather have than anything else in all the world?" To which Vivien replied, "Lady, I would rather have such wisdom as thou hast than anything else." Then Queen Morgana laughed and said, "It is possible for thee to be as wise as I am, and wiser too, if so be thou wilt do according to my ordination. For I know a way in which thou mayst obtain wisdom." "How may I attain this wisdom, lady?" said Vivien. Then Queen Morgana le Fay said, "Hearken, and I will tell thee. Thou must know that Merlin, whom thou hast several times seen at the court of King Arthur, is a master of all the wisdom that is possible for anyone to possess in this world. And all that I know of magic Merlin hath taught me, and he knoweth many things that he did not teach me, but which he withheld from me. For Merlin taught me, when I was a young damsel at the court of my mother's husband, because I was very beautiful in his eyes. For Merlin loveth beauty above all things else in the world, and so he taught me many things of magic, and was very patient with me. But Merlin hath a gift which belongeth to him, and which he cannot communicate to anyone else, for it is instinct with him. That gift is the gift of foreseeing into the future, and the power of prophesying thereupon. Yet, though he may foresee the fate of others, still is he blind to his own fate. For so he confessed to me several times that he could not tell what was to happen in his own life, when that happening concerned himself alone. Now thou, Vivien, art far more beautiful than I was at that age. Wherefore, I believe that thou wilt easily attract the regard of Merlin unto thee. And if I give thee, besides, a certain charm which I possess, I may cause it to be that Merlin may love thee so much that he will impart to thee a great deal more of his wisdom than he ever taught me when I was his disciple. But thou art to know, Vivian, that in winning this gift of knowledge from Merlin, thou wilt put thyself in great peril. For by and by, when the charm of thy beauty shall have waned with him, that he may easily regret what he hath done in imparting his wisdom to thee. In which case there will be great danger that he may lay some spell upon thee to deprive thee of thy powers. For it would be impossible that both thou and he could live in the same world if each of ye know so much cunning of magic. Now unto all this Vivian listened with a great deal of attention, and when Queen Morgana had ended, the damsel said, Dear lady, all that thou tellest me is very wonderful, and I find myself possessed with a venerate desire to attain such knowledge in magic as that. Wherefore, if thou wilt help me in this matter, so that I may beguile his wisdom from Merlin, thou wilt make of me a debtor unto thee for as long as I may live. And touching the matter of any danger that may fall to me in this affair, I am altogether willing to assume that, for I have great hope that I may be able to protect myself from Merlin, that no harm shall befall me. For, when I have drawn all the knowledge that I am able to obtain from him, then I will use the same knowledge to cast such a spell upon him that he shall never be able to harm me or anyone else again. In this I shall play my wit against his wisdom, and my beauty against his cunning, and I believe that I shall win at this game. Then Queen Morgana fell laughing beyond all measure, and when she had stinted her laughter, she cried, Hey, Vivian! Saidst thou art cunning beyond anything that I ever heard tell of, and I believe that thou art as wicked as thou art cunning. For who ever heard of a child of 15 years old who would speak such words as thou hast just now spoken? Or whoever could suppose that so young a girl could conceive the thought of compassing the downfall of the wisest magician who had ever lived? Then Queen Morgana le Fay set her lips to a small whistle of ivory and gold, and blew very shrilly upon it, and in reply there came running a young page of her court. Queen Morgana commanded him to bring to her a certain casket of alabaster, cunningly carved and adorned with gold and set with several precious stones. And Queen Morgana opened the box and took from within it 2 rings of pure yellow gold, and the one ring with a clear white stone of extraordinary brilliancy, and the other with a stone as red as blood. Then Queen Morgana said, Vivian, behold these 2 rings. They possess each a spell of wonderful potency. For if thou wearest that ring with the white stone, whoever weareth the ring with the red stone shall love thee with such a passion of love, that thou mayst do with him whatever thou hast a will to do. So take these rings, and go into King Arthur's court, and use them as thy cunning may devise. So Vivian took the 2 rings, and gave Queen Morgana le Fay thanks beyond all measure for them. Now King Arthur took much pleasure in holding a great feast each Pentecost, at which time his court was gathered about him with much mirth and rejoicing. At such times it delighted him to have some excellent entertainment for to amuse himself in his court. Wherefore it befell that nearly always something happened that gave much entertainment to the king. So came the feast of Pentecost, and King Arthur sat at the table with a great many nobles and lordly folks and several kings and queens. Now as they all sat at that feast, their spirits greatly expanded with mirth and good cheer, there suddenly came into the hall a very beautiful young damsel, and with her a dwarf, wonderfully misshapen and of a very hideous countenance. And the maiden was dressed all in flame-colored satin, very rich and with beautiful embroidery of gold and embroidery of silver. And her hair, which was red like gold, was caught into a net of gold, and her eyes were black as coals and extraordinary bright and glistening. And she had about her throat a necklace of gold of 3 strands, so that with all that gold and those bright garments she shone with wonderful splendor as she entered the hall. Likewise, the dwarf who accompanied her was clad in all flame-colored raiment, and he bore in his hands a cushion of flame-colored silk with tassels of gold, and upon the cushion he bore a ring of exceeding beauty set with a red stone. So when King Arthur beheld this beautiful maiden, he supposed nothing else than that there was some excellent entertainment, and at that he rejoiced a very great deal. But when he looked well at the damsel, it appeared to him that he knew her face. Wherefore he said to her, Damsel, who art thou? Sir, she said, I am the daughter of the King of Northumberland, and my name is Vivian. And thereat King Arthur was satisfied. Then King Arthur said to her, Lady, what is it that thou hast upon yonder cushion, and why hast thou honoured us by coming hitherward? To the which Vivian made reply, Lord, I have here a very good entertainment for to give you pleasure at this feast of Pentecost. For here is a ring of such a sort that only he who is the most wise and the most worthy of all men here present may wear it. And King Arthur said, "Let us see the ring." So Vivien took the ring from the cushion which the dwarf held, and she came and brought it on to King Arthur. And the king took the ring into his own hand. And he perceived that the ring was extraordinarily beautiful, wherefore he said, "Maiden, may I have thy leave to try this ring upon my finger?" And Vivien said, "Yea, lord." So King Arthur made attempt to place the ring upon his finger. But lo, the ring shrank in size, so that it would not pass beyond the first joint thereof. Wherefore King Arthur said, "It would appear that I am not worthy to wear this ring." Then the damsel Vivien said, "Have I my lord's leave to offer this ring to others of his court?" And King Arthur said, "Let the others try the ring." So Vivien took the ring to the various folks of the court, both lords and ladies, but not one of these could wear the ring. The last of all, Vivien came to the place where Merlin sat, and she kneeled upon the ground before him and offered the ring to him. And Merlin, because this concerned himself, could not forecast into the future to know that harm was intended to him. Nevertheless, he looked sourly upon the damsel, and he said, "Child, what is this silly trick thou offerest me?" "Sir," quoth Vivien, "I beseech you for to try this ring upon your finger." Then Merlin regarded the damsel more closely, and he perceived that she was very beautiful, wherefore his heart softened towards her a great deal. So he spake more gently unto her, and he said, "Wherefore should I take the ring?" To which she made reply, "Because I believe thou art the most wise and the most worthy of any man in all this place, wherefore the ring should belong to thee." Then Merlin smiled and took the ring and placed it upon his finger, and lo, it fitted the finger exactly. Thereupon Vivien cried out, "See, the ring has fitted his finger, and he is the most wise and the most worthy." And Merlin was greatly pleased that this ring which the beautiful damsel had given him had fitted his finger in that way. Then, after a while, he would have withdrawn the ring again, but behold, he could not, for the ring had grown to his finger, as though it were a part of the flesh and the bone thereof. At this Merlin became much troubled and very anxious, for he did not understand what might be meant by the magic of the ring. So he said, "Lady, where comes this ring?" And Vivien said, "Sir, thou knowest all things. Dost thou then not know that this ring was sent hitherward from Morgana le Fay?" Then again Merlin was greatly in doubt, and he said, "I hope there may be no evil in this ring." And Vivien smiled upon him and said, "What evil could there be in it?" Now by this time the great magic that was in the ring began to work upon Merlin's spirit, wherefore he regarded Vivien very steadily, and suddenly he took great pleasure in her beauty. Then the magic of the ring got entire hold upon him, and lo, a wonderful passion immediately seized upon his heart and wrung it so that it was pierced as with a violent agony. And Vivien beheld what passed in Merlin's mind, and she laughed and turned away. And several others who were there also observed a very strange manner in which Merlin regarded her. Wherefore they said among themselves, "Of a surety Merlin is bewitched by the beauty of that young damoiselle." So after that time the enchantment of the ring of Morgana le Fay was so wrought upon Merlin's spirit that he could in no wise disentangle himself from Vivien's witchery. For from that day forth, whithersoever she went, there he might be found not far away. And if she was in the garden, he would be there, and if she was in the hall, he also would be there, and if she went a hawking, he would also be a horseback. And all the court observed these things, and many made themselves merry and jested upon it. But Vivien hated Merlin with all her might, for she saw that they all made merry at that folly of Merlin's, and he wearied her with his regard. But she dissembled that disregard before his face, and behaved to him in all ways as though she had a great friendship for him. Now it happened upon a day that Vivien sat in the garden, and it was wonderfully pleasant summer weather, and Merlin came into the garden and beheld Vivien where he sat. But when Vivien perceived Merlin coming, she suddenly felt so great a disregard for him that she could not bear for to be nigh to him at that time. Wherefore she arose in haste with intent to escape from him. But Merlin hurried and overtook her, and he said to her, "Child, do you then hate me?" And Vivien said, "Sir, I do not hate you." But Merlin said, "In very truth, I believe that you do hate me." And Vivien was silent. Then in a little Merlin said, "I would that I knew what I might do for you, so that you would cease to hate me, for I find that I have a wonderful love for you." Upon this Vivien looked at Merlin very strangely, and by she said, "Sir, if you would only impart your wisdom and your cunning unto me, then I believe that I could love you a very great deal. For behold, I am but as a young girl in knowledge, and thou art so old and so wise that I am afraid of thee. If thou wouldst teach me thy wisdom so that I might be thine equal, then haply I might grow to have such regard for thee as thou wouldst have me feel. Upon this, Merlin looked very steadily at Vivian, and he said, Damsel, thou art certes no such foolish child as thou dost proclaim thyself to be. For I see that thine eyes are very bright with a cunning beyond thy years. Then Vivian cried out with a very loud and piercing voice, Merlin, if thou dost love me, teach me thy wisdom and thy cunning of thy magic, and then I will love thee beyond anyone else in all the world. But Merlin sighed very deeply, for his heart misgave him. Then by and by he said, Vivian, thou shalt have as thy will, and I will teach thee all those things of wisdom and magic that thou desirest to know. Upon this, Vivian was filled with such a vehement agony of joy that she did not dare to let Merlin look into her countenance, lest he should read what was therein written. Wherefore she cast down her eyes and turned her face away from him. In a little while she said, Master, when wilt thou teach me that wisdom? To this Merlin made reply, I shall not teach thee today, nor tomorrow, nor at this place, for I can only teach thee those knowledges in such solitudes that there shall be nothing to disturb thy studies. But tomorrow thou shalt tell King Arthur that thou must return unto thy father's kingdom. Then we will depart together, accompanied by thy court, and when we have come to some secluded place, there I will build a habitation by the means of my magic, and we shall bide therein until I have instructed thee in wisdom. Then Vivian made great joy, and she caught Merlin's hand in hers, and she kissed his hand with great passion. So the next day Vivian besought King Arthur that he would give her leave to return to her father's court. And upon the third day she and Merlin and a number of attendants who were in the service upon the damsel quitted the court of King Arthur and departed as though to go upon their way to the kingdom of Northumberland. But after they had gone some little distance from the court of the king, they turned to the eastward and took their way to a certain valley of which Merlin was acquainted. And it was so fair and pleasant a place that it was sometimes called the Valley of Delight, and sometimes the Valley of Joyousness.